Hi, Annalisa. Thank you for talking with me today. You were my very first client quite a few years ago now. And first, thank you that you let me explore with you my very first hands-on trials. And turns out that you are on the teacher training course yourself now. I guess that's the feedback for my work.
Yes, thank you, Kathy.
Yeah.
All I can say, you're saying thank you to me, I'm saying thank you to you, because in a lot of ways it has changed my life drastically for the better. So yes, it's all your fault, really.
Okay, let's go with a few questions then about your journey.
I'm Annalisa. I'm 39 years old. I am at the Alexander training course at this time, second year, and I love music, and that's been my main passion all throughout my life. And yeah, there's so many elements that I'm just going to keep it simple. I think I was not in a good place, mentally and physically in a lot of ways, and this work enabled me to kind of come back to myself and maybe rewind some of these things that I've sort of gotten myself into. And having been through the trauma of grief of losing my parent, my mother, and also realization that I am dealing with slight forms of ADHD, in these situations the Alexander technique just worked wonderfully in helping me to gain some sense of self and to be able to come back to myself and be able to not just react to things but be more responsive and able to come off from the sort of high adrenaline life of pushing forward and not really thinking where I've been and what my experience has been. Yes. Because I knew a little bit more about it, it's very interesting because I read the book before I actually had any hands-on work. So I read Alexander's Use of Self, and it's quite cryptic, so it doesn't give you much away of what is actually going to happen. And so I had this sort of a teaser where I knew what it was, but I had no clue. So I was ready to sort of just immerse myself in the experience and see what comes out of it without having this sort of gain. And because you were studying at this time as well, it was just a wonderful way to experiment and really kind of yeah, like the main theme is coming back to yourself, and I think it really helped me with that, even though I didn't even expect this to be the results. So I was just more curious than anything. There wasn't like a significant aim in itself. There's a lot of layers to this, because when it comes to the effect that grief has on you, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of dealing with emotions of like, have I done enough, and could I have done things better, and that sort of self-blame and the circle of really like processing the grief itself. Also being kinder to yourself once you've been through that experience. And I think these are the key things of just like being able to not be so harsh on your own experience and maybe less judgmental. And once you stop having these crazy high expectations of how you should be in life, you will be able to find where you are and who you are and feel mostly at peace with it. That's a very good question. I think unexpectedly, I found out that there is actually quite a contemplative side to me that isn't actually an overthinker. So rather, because it's always seeing things in a negative manner and thinking, oh, I either get into a spin of thoughts or I don't think at all and just jump into it. But I was able to actually realize that I can be contemplative. I can be a lot of things that are good for me. So I don't have to just be on the sort of push and go button state. I can actually take a step back, and that's also me, and that's also okay. I think it's very tricky to choose one thing specifically. I think it's more of the whole state of how you approach life, how you approach others. So it's more of a holistic way it changes you. I feel there's an element of it where you feel the connections in a better way. You feel more authentic to yourself, and definitely has taken off that sort of push, which I had a lot of. And once you stop the push and just sort of try to catch the rhythm of life or how you're moving in it, it becomes easier. So even though you feel that you're maybe not putting as much effort into things, they actually flow smoother because you're not trying too hard to get things right or make things. There's this sort of pressure and grip of it is not there. It's more of a hold than a desperational grip. I think having, like, this is my second year in the school, so obviously it started with you, Kathy, and now I'm on my own journey. What I've discovered is that it is a journey. So even when I thought I had come a long way when I was working with you, this journey will continue. So if I'm facing challenges, I might still have certain elements where I can recognize my whole wanting to do and these sort of elements which are just natural to still be there. But I think I'm a lot more able to take things in their stride and also accept that if I don't have the perfect response to the drama or whatever is going on, that I'm still okay. I'm still an okay person. So it doesn't kind of stretch into the thing that if I responded in a wrong way in my head to a certain stimuli, that now everything I do is wrong or who I am is wrong. That's definitely dissipated. I've learned a lot of kindness to myself through it, and I think it's very helpful, because if you're not able to be kind to yourself, it's very hard to be kind to others, even if you want to. So I think it's a very important lesson that you learn. So yeah, taking things in a way that isn't that everything you do and everything you say is the pivotal moment, but just realizing that life is in this sort of flow where you have ups and downs, and how you respond to it is what makes the difference. And be able to really say it and feel it, rather than, I know I should be saying that because that's what everyone expects of me, but really feel it in my nervous system that I am more stable in myself. So yeah, definitely. So rather than thinking, okay, now it's a stressful moment, so I have to count to 10, breathe really slowly, and then things will be better. It's more about the fact that my nervous system is able to handle it without putting too much of an emphasis on that point. So I think that's the whole thing. We wind ourselves up with like thinking this is it, this is the moment, or this is the drama, or this is the conflict. But if your own nervous system is in a point where it can take it as just one of many things happening in your life, it's so much more helpful than any tip you would ever learn. So yeah, the regulation I can definitely feel. And the great thing about it is, it doesn't mean that you're less lively or you're somehow apathetic or you're lethargic or you don't enjoy life because you're now constantly in this weird nirvana state. No, you're still yourself, but you're more yourself. You're able to actually handle this in a way that you want to, rather than going into the reaction of doing something because you're up on the nervous system and this is your fight and flight response to it. I think that's the trick. The trick is there are no tricks. Okay, there's a lot, because as I said before as well, you kickstarted my journey in some respects, and throughout this journey there's been so many milestones where I've felt that there's a difference to how I approach things. Maybe that, like, when I met up with my family, and I love them dearly, but it's still quite a high stimuli of like the expectations and the roles that you will always play. And when people in my family are saying to me, hey, you're looking a lot more like calm and centered, and then I'm thinking, yeah, I think I am. And that was definitely a very kind of a nice little pointer that I'm heading in the right direction. An ability also to face certain things that I've sort of put in the back burner, having ADHD, where you just, if things are not in your vicinity, that they don't exist, especially things that you don't really want to do, so you kind of put them in the back burner and you don't want to deal with them. And I think actually this work has helped me to come face to face with these things and go like, right, it's easier if you deal with it rather than when you pretend it doesn't exist. So it's been a big emotional growth. Physically as well, actually, funnily enough, there is a shift. And when I started this work, I remember saying to you as well that I admire the fact that I feel that you've got a very strong backbone. Now in Estonian we say you've got a strong spine. Yeah, and I always felt that I'm a bit like this sort of playing about, I don't have that center and I'm not quite sure and I'm easily swayed one way or another, rather than having that solidity of this is my spine. And I definitely feel that this has become more certain. I feel more I feel more grounded in that connection of the earth, my feet, my spine, and me. And it's a weird there's a physiological pure element of it that you do really feel your spine. It's crazy, but it is. And it comes with that mental thought that this is something that holds me and protects me as well. It's me. I don't have to sway. This is where I am. Yeah.
You're not pushed and pulled so easily.
Exactly. I think it helps you if you're, especially when you're a person who struggles with boundaries. I think it becomes a lot easier to go, no, this is not okay for me, or yes, I'm happy to do that. And I think it was a lot more difficult because I would just sort of plod along because that was what people wanted of me. And then you end up running ragged because you're doing things that you might not actually really want to do, but you're just getting swayed. Oh, so many things. I think you have a wonderful way of talking to people. I mean, it helps that you've got a lovely voice, but your way of approaching is so soft, but very sort of, again, that spine is there. So you're soft, but I can feel that you're not someone who is a wishy-washy, that there's a firmness in your softness. And that is such a wonderful quality to have, and it really supported me. And I think voice for me is very important. For someone who does music, I think anything audible is important. And yeah, obviously your hands did the magic, and that's how I ended up in the school. And yeah, like there's been a lot of revelations, and I definitely wouldn't have taken this journey on if it wasn't your work, and this work really giving me something. And I remember, like, I've been doing a lot of exams for music during this period, and I've had to just call Kathy to get that strength of like, okay, I'm just borrowing her spine for a little while, and it's been, yeah, very encouraging, very supportive, and I feel like it gives hope. Hopeful is the word. Those are the words that come in my head when I think of you in your work. Inspiring. That is a massive question. So it's fascinating being in the school, because you get to experience a lot of different teachers, and you will understand that every teacher that I've actually experienced is definitely, it's the Alexander technique. However, everyone is an individual, so their approach towards the technique is individual, and that's the beauty of it as well, because all of these individual people will give you something very special. They are giving themselves to you in that moment. And that co-regulation aspect of working with another person who is there for you and really open for you is probably for me one of those things that really sold it to me in some aspects. So for me, Alexander technique is about co-regulation through another person, helpful. But the best part about it is you're not reliant on the person. So while I got a lot of strength and help from you in the beginning, I think it's given me so much empowerment in myself that it's, you know, I used to call you to help me with these music exams. I don't think I do that much anymore, because I found that strength in myself as well. And yes, I have good days, I have bad days. But in general, yeah, it empowers you in a lot of ways to feel good in yourself. The other part is it's essentially work with the nervous system. So the aim of it isn't just to get you off the chair or to have a wonderful back. This is sort of a byproduct of what you're doing anyways. So the aim is to actually get your nervous system and your body into that place where it can function without you really getting in between it with your intrusive thoughts or fears or all these things that may be brewing in your brain and are taking over your physicality, because whatever is brewing in your brain will affect your body. And I'm a firm believer in that, especially after the grief period, because no one really mentioned how physical the process of grief itself is, how many aches and pains you get. And I got really panicky. I thought I was going to die. Like my mom died, and then I thought, well, I'm going to die after her, because everything was in such physical pain. And to understand that this was very much somatic, it was because of how my mental state was that affected my body. And it makes sense, right? Because if you are stressed, your body will become more cramped. I walked around with my hands in fists because I was so anxious, right? And I think that element of holistic work, that you're working with a mental state as well as the physical state, is really the crux of it as well. So yeah, I don't know if I waffle too much around these different aspects of it, but for me, the co-regulation, achieving the sort of balance in the nervous system so that you can function without these stress distractions. And yeah, it's a holistic thing rather than we're now working with a body and now we're working with a mind. And for me, it makes so much sense. You have two parts to the session. You have the part where you are moving with the help of the teacher, So that's what we call the chair work. And the way I see it is, in the chair work, you're essentially working with your brain to create a space where your body is relaxed, but alert. So we're not falling asleep when we're on the chair. But the aim of it is that once we achieve the state when our nervous system isn't reactive, we're able to move the body. You're moving it, and the teacher helps you with the aid of a teacher. And through this movement, you're creating new neural pathways where your self is able to learn that essentially there are several ways to skin a cat. It's not just a sort of tunnel vision of doing things, and you're breaking the pattern of habits. So through these new movements that you're learning, or doing these movements in a place where you're relaxed, will enable you to learn new ways of being. And essentially the chair is the stimuli. It's working with that stimuli of, oh, I need to sit. Doesn't seem like much, but actually when you get to that crux, it's almost like your body reacts to it as a stimuli. So to take that off, because essentially, why do we need to react to a chair? We don't. It's just there. And us sitting is just changing the way our body is positioned. And yet our body seems to react to it. So now if we're able to take off that reactive element in that situation, our whole self is able to learn that we can do things without having this reaction at the start of anything. And I think that's how the sort of chair work works. It's about breaking the patterns that you have created through whatever reason, and then solidifying the new neural pathways in your brain, that you are able to say, hey, if I can come out the chair without reacting, maybe I can do other things that way as well. So your brain is able to kind of adapt, adjust, and learn something new. And that's the great thing, what you learn now, what we've learned in the neuroscience, that it's not just that your brain is now solid. It is actually able to change. You are able to change how your body and your brain and your whole self functions. It's possible. We're not set in stone. And I think that's wonderful. Oh, I didn't get to the table bit. So the table bit is essentially a point where gravitation works along with the teacher. So the idea is, when the gravitation is on you and you're in a semi-supine with your knees and your head is supported, your body is able to basically unwind from itself, and your spine is able to decompress. So in some respects, that's sort of half nature and half teacher, bringing you to that point where your body feels relaxed. And it kind of makes sense that after you've done all this hard work of learning new things, now you're giving it a time to absorb it, decompress, and find that sort of place. So that's the way I see it. I mean, I'm not going to say that this is a be all and end all interpretation, but that's how it makes sense in my head. As a woman, I wasn't really aware of having an ADHD up until in the recent years. And in some respects, it was because of having an ex-partner who had a severe form of ADHD, and then realizing that I'm kind of doing the same things to a lesser degree. So that was sort of the starting point of realization that the thing that I was thinking that's always wrong with me is actually, it's not wrong, it's just neurodiversity. But even when I was little, I would be able to excel at school and get good grades. I was definitely a people pleaser. I was definitely a high achiever in that respect. However, looking back now as well, I kind of went through boom and bust cycles. So I would push on, and then come the Christmas holiday and I would crash. So this sort of cycle of pushing on, pushing as much as I can, and then stop. And I think it's quite common with ADHD people as well in general, that you just sort of, you're able to do this, but it comes at a cost when you stop. So in some respects, what has been super helpful with Alexander technique is having the awareness of what you're doing, having awareness of your patterns, understanding these patterns. That's already like a big step, because once you're aware of these patterns, it does help you because you can find ways to deal with it. Secondly, just taking nervous system off of that continuous chase of adrenaline. As we know, like if you have ADHD, you also most likely have issues with cortisol in your body. You are more likely to be depressed. You're more likely to have also comorbidity of autism and other issues, because it's all here in the prefrontal cortex. So being able to come off of that chase of the adrenaline high and just be there. At first it's really weird. It gets really weird because you're used to this busy. Now I stop. What do? Panic, depression. I'm not worth of anything. But and I'm still slightly running on these sort of patterns because it's hard to break them, but I feel like they've become a lot less extreme. So it sort of smooths out that pattern. So rather than going like this, you're probably going a little bit more like this. And you're hoping to maybe get into So I think that's what, for me, like, it's been super helpful. And I think as a person with ADHD, you really do need to take more care of your nervous system. And that is one definite way to support you. I really can't recommend it enough. It's helped me a lot. It really has. Yeah. I think there's been so many ways. I still do yoga and I enjoy it, but I've never found that it actually works with the nervous system. It's great, but it doesn't actually give you that sense that I'm actually feeling a bit more leveled once it's stopped. I definitely have been escaping in books or also like hobbies, as in a diversion tactic, not just because I'm doing it, but in a way that then I'm not that angsty. And I feel like now when I'm doing creative things, it comes from a less desperate place. What else have I done? I definitely haven't done running. I hate running. But yeah, I probably drank too much, probably partied too much. All of these sort of escaping ways of working through things, which very short term plan, and very quickly you realize this is just gonna dig you deeper in the hole rather than getting you out of it. Yeah, I mean that's where I've been. This is actually where I feel a massive growth, even with comparatively to last year. I was lucky enough to have like the first lesson at my school where Anthony put hands on me. So I went to Anthony's school, and I was singing while he was putting hands on me, and that was a very interesting experiment. So it's cool because I've got that recording and I can now compare to where I am at now. And I'm like, even in that year, I can feel that me as an artist or performer is in a much more confident place. Like I know where my voice comes from when I'm on the stage. I know what I'm doing there. I'm not letting all of these intrusive thoughts get in the way of, like, am I looking good? Are my feet twitching? Are my hands doing the right thing? All of these things which are not actually to do with what I'm doing here. And it really helps you to enjoy it and concentrate without hyper concentration. So it's been amazing. And I think also actually the physicality of it, the fact that you're working with the back and the neck, and I do feel that where I am is easier to sing. Amazing. Yeah. And I think a lot of musicians would tell you that it's been life-changing to do Alexander technique. It really takes you off from that ambition of trying to be something, but really just enjoy the process of doing music. And I think there's a big difference. Oh, I have. Loads. Because I've gotten so much support, help, and hope from this. I really have been telling anyone who's got issues with even, like, it can be something as back pain to something as I'm stressed to something as I don't know what's happening and I'm not feeling quite myself. Any of these things, I would just say it's worth seeing it and trying it out, see how it works with you, and the benefits of it. I think it requires patience, or that you're in a deep enough of a hole that you feel like this is it. I have to do something, otherwise I don't have my body, I don't have my brain, I don't have anything here going. I also believe that if it's the right time, it will find you. So it's good to even talk about it without saying you should totally do it, but just mention what it's about. And then people can make their own conclusions. And then maybe if they're in that hole where they really can't see any answers, maybe hopefully they remember, oh yeah, I remember there's this Alexander technique that says that I can actually be okay in myself. So yeah, I definitely recommend it for anything that you feel that you're just not at home in yourself. I think that's probably the widest and most accurate way to describe it. I think it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful and magical in a lot of ways that I had this opportunity, that you worked with me and you wanted to work with me, and it's just, yeah, it's rocked my world. and I know that I've come a long way from where I was, but I also realize that the journey hasn't finished by any means, and it is a lifelong process with yourself, and once you realize that there are no sort of tricks or gimmicks or sort of fast food options to really support yourself, then I think you will find your way to Alexander technique, because it is about really understanding what truly feeds you, rather than giving you that sort of temporary relief. So yeah, journey, not a fix.